Coach Prime is not worried about the perceived negatives around his program right now. The good from this weekend is going to far outweigh the perceived bad. Let's talk about it. Let's address it straight from the top. Colorado had a couple of players at the wide receiver position jump in the portal after their spring game. Chase Sowell and Montana Lamonius Craig both hit the portal after Colorado's spring game. Montana had a very, very impressive spring game, hauled in a couple of touchdown catches, had over 150 yards. And I know this comes as a big shock. I want to address that one specifically. I've been told, I've heard that he likely was planning on entering the portal anyway and went out and tried to ball out as kind of an audition for his next college. I think that Colorado is really, really set at the wide receiver position with both Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn Jr. Don't think this is as big of a loss as maybe some might think. I do think that because he had a big spring game, folks think that it's a big problem. Don't think it's huge. Then, Juwan Johnson, decommitted. He's a four-star athlete that was being recruited as a cornerback to the Buffaloes. He's from Lafayette, Louisiana. Was on campus this weekend for the spring game. I think this is a bigger deal, but I don't think it's the end of the world either. We all know that Coach Prime is going to get defensive backs. He's going to get cornerbacks, probably the easiest sell in recruiting in college football. Not sure the exact reason for Johnson's decommitment. I do know that as a Louisiana kid, it sounds like both Florida and LSU will be really, really involved in that recruitment. Tough to pull kids out of Louisiana. Maybe got out there and it was just a little too chilly for him. But I don't think that's the end of the world. But you never like to have a decommit after a kid is on your campus. Don't know what those private conversations between him and Coach Prime and the staff, Coach Mathis, were. But as we learn more, we'll certainly keep you updated. I don't think that this is the end of the world by any means, though. And this is what we want to get into. This is what we want to talk about today. Again, I don't think these things are the end of the world. I think that the good from this weekend is going to outweigh it. And I want to talk about 5 reasons why that is the case. Number 1, Coach Prime told us this was coming. In several press conferences, in several different avenues, in different ways, Coach Prime told us that there would be some guys who would make it and some guys who wouldn't make it on this roster. He told us that some guys would not make it through this spring. I don't know if he was specifically referring to the couple of wide receivers or even the linebacker that went in the portal this morning, but we knew that this roster was going to be changing. Also, we talked about how culture is the most important thing that Coach Prime has to flip in Colorado, and that is going to take some time. There is going to be another portal wave. Some guys cut it at Colorado and some guys didn't. And just because a guy entered the portal doesn't mean that he's running from Coach Prime. It may very well mean that Coach Prime wants to upgrade at that position. Coach Prime also told us that the team you see in spring is not going to be the same team that you see in fall. That's a direct quote. Those are his words. I think that you're going to see a different roster come fall, and not everybody there in the spring game would be there in fall. So I think that Coach Prime knew some of this was going to happen. Secondly, about the spring game itself, and we want to do more videos on this, game hype was absolutely real. 50 plus recruits there at the game, guys from all over the country. There were several SEC commits that were on Flip Watch. I just saw an interview with a linebacker that's committed to LSU right now that said that Coach Prime and staff blew him away. The crowd there blew him away. I thought that was really, really impressive. That's a kid that is committed to LSU and chose to be at Colorado's spring game on the same day that his team that he's committed to had a spring game. So I think that, the negative comes out and people hear the negative, this, that, the other, and they want to focus on that. But a lot of good is going to come out of this spring game. You also look at the support. And for the diehards that are into every single little piece of recruiting news, you may be concerned about this, that, the other. But when you look at the hype and you see Coach Prime running onto the field through the smoke and you look at that full stadium, you look at the pictures between what it looked like last year and this year there in Colorado, in Boulder for the spring game, it is on another level. Coach Prime did really cool stuff where he brought out an 80-year-old fan to do the kickoff and just the way that he gives back and is embracing the entire community is pretty neat to see. And the fan support that's there in Colorado for him is really special. It was freezing. It was snow that they had to get off of every seat. They had to plow the field. And for folks to still come out in that weather, I won't go out when it's raining, let alone when it's below freezing temperatures and just kind of insane there at Colorado. It was really neat to see. And a packed out, well-supported stadium, a well-supported crowd, people that are out there, Colorado fans, Coach Prime fans like we are. That was incredible to see, and that is only going to increase. It's really impressive to see the fan support, what people are doing, what people are showing up for, and what Coach Prime is building there in Colorado. Next up, we talked about this specifically, but recruits at the stadium seem to have a really, really good time. I don't want to speak for anybody, but if you read some of the interviews that are recruits coming out of what they saw at the game, it was really, really impressive to see the time that Coach Prime put on. Celebrities there at the game. Obviously, the big highlights with Travis and Shedeur and different ones making really, really big plays. I think recruiting efforts are going to take a notch up. I think you're going to see some conversions. You're going to see some guys committing to this staff and to this team soon. And I know that, we're all focused on the negative right now, but I do think you're going to see the positive, the fruits from their labor coming soon. We talked about this, and we've talked about jersey numbers. We've talked about culture and things of that nature that need to be flipped and improved. And we mentioned that even within point one. But we talked about guys that wanted to be there. And if guys decommit or guys jump in the transfer portal, sometimes it's just that they're not the right fit. Sometimes it's just that they're not the right culture fit for this roster. And that's okay. They have to do what's best for them, and they have to do what's best for their careers. But point number 4 is that Coach Prime is looking for guys who want to be here, who want to take part in the Colorado Buffaloes culture, who want to take part in Coach Prime's culture. And if guys don't want to put in the work, the effort, want to earn their jersey numbers, want to be there, want to do things the right way, then Coach Prime doesn't want them in Colorado. And that's fine. They can go somewhere else and play, and that's totally okay. But Coach Prime is working and looking for the guys that are going to give that maximum effort, that maximum work level, and those are the guys that he wants to build this roster around. Point number 5, he is working right now on pulling in the number 1 overall defensive lineman in the country. Again, number 1 player at his position again this season. Williams Nwaneri, the number 1 defensive lineman in the country, was in attendance, and I think that he's going to be really, really special if the Buffs can get him into this class. He is a 6'6", 260-pound kid out of Lee's Summit, Missouri. He's the second best player in the nation, according to On3, an obvious 5-star talent. Pulling him could bring an entire wave of recruits to Colorado. Ballers want to play with ballers, and Coach Prime knows what he's doing by investing here in the trenches. I know that we had a defensive back decommit. We've had some wide receivers, some talent, some skill positions that have entered the transfer portal. Those don't concern me. What I want to see Coach Prime improve on and what I want to see him bring in more are the trenches. I think at skill position, the Buffaloes are pretty well set. I love what they've got at quarterback. We're going to do a video on Shedeur very soon. I love what they've got out there on the edges with Jimmy Horn Jr. and Travis Hunter, who we've mentioned. I like what they've got in the defensive backfield. I think they pulled in some big transfers. I think that you obviously have the number 1 overall cornerback in Cormani McClain coming in the fall. You have Travis who can play back there in that secondary as well. I like where they're at from a skill position perspective. I like the running back position a lot. I think what needs to be improved on this roster and on this team is the trenches. And if you pull in the number 1 defensive lineman in the country, Williams Nwaneri, if you're able to pull in a 5-star talent on that defensive line and you start building those trenches, that's what's going to make Colorado an absolute force. I like what they did in the transfer portal at the edge position, and pulling in a guy like Williams, the number 1 defensive lineman in the country, would be phenomenal. I also think that it would start a wave of defensive recruits that want to get to Buffalo because they believe in the proof of concept of what Coach Prime is building. 5 reasons why I think Coach Prime's good will far outweigh the bad, why I think he's not worried about any of the perceived negatives. Again, here on this video, they are. Coach Prime told us this was coming. The spring game hype was very, very real. The recruits that were there at the game were on another level. Flipping the culture is something that has to happen. And number 5, pulling in the number 1 player in the country is the overall objective. And if Coach Prime can get that done, it will have been a successful weekend. There is no doubt that losing guys to the portal and having a decommitment is less than ideal. I don't think either one of those is the end of the world. And if guys don't want to be here, that is 100% on them. If they don't want to play for this staff and Coach Prime, we don't want them in Colorado. And that's totally okay. Go somewhere else and shine. Coach Prime knows what it takes to be successful, and he's going to do what he needs to do to win. There will be highs and lows. There are going to be good moments and bad moments. This weekend, when ESPN nationally televised a spring game that was sold out in freezing cold temperatures in Colorado for Coach Prime, was a good moment. Guys, I cheer for FSU. You can see the Bobby Bowden signed ball and hat back there in the back. Coach Prime's coach knew what a turnaround took and knew what time a turnaround of a program took. Heck, Florida State's current coach won 3 games his first season and turned that program into a winner, a 10-game winner this past season. And I think Coach Prime and the Buffaloes win more than 3 games this year. But I'm just telling you, it takes time to turn a roster around. It takes time to flip the culture of a program. And just know there will be ups and downs along the way. You saw some downs this last day or so. You're going to see some ups coming very, very soon. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel and you don't miss any of it. There's a plan in place, and Coach Prime is going to right the ship and get it going in the right direction. He is not stressing about this. I can guarantee you that. We're going to continue the content and working for all of you, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't miss any of it. Our next video, or one this week, will very likely focus on Shedeur Sanders, who balled out in the spring game, and we do not want you to miss that. So make sure that you're locked in. If you want to see more about the staff and more about the transfers that Coach Prime has already brought in, you can click either playlist on the screen. Thank you guys, as always, for watching the Prime Time for College Football.